So I want to just go back a minute when we spoke before. My dad being a Mount St. Mary's alum, and I had an opportunity to go back with him. And what was that like going back to your alma mater?
Man, it's going to require a little bit of reflection. You know, there's a moment where it's a year number 5. We go in as a number 1 seed in the tournament. We win the tournament at home. Those things had never happened in the same year at Mount St. Mary's. Regular season champion and tournament champion. Right. They'd already done one or the other. But there's like this incredible moment where, you know, you're in the game and you're sort of locked in on what's happening on the floor.
Right.
And I remember Miles Wilson, we were down 6 or 7 or something at the half. And Miles Wilson hits a 3 with about 14 minutes left in the second half that puts us up by 2. And the place erupted. And I remember looking up when they erupted, and there were people standing all the way around at the very top, standing, and there were people standing all the way around. And I just remember thinking, like, you know, Coach Phelan retired my junior year. I'd never seen as many people in that building as that moment that we were just in. And I remember looking up and seeing all the people. And then I remember looking to the baseline where Coach Phelan would always sit. And I remember the look on his face and how incredibly happy he was, how incredibly proud he was.
Welcome to Life on the Road, a coach's journey with your hosts.
I'm Alphonza Kee.
And I'm Scott Bollwage.
This is a podcast by coaches for coaches.
So sit back and enjoy another outstanding episode of Life on the Road. Welcome to another episode of Life on the Road. And today our special guest, all the way in Italy, is Jamion Christian. So, Coach, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm always excited to share my journey with others and appreciate all you do as a resource to other coaches. It's super important to share the good. I always say, shout the good. It's super important to do that. I appreciate you all signing up to do that.
I tell you, it's been a while since I've seen you, man. You still look great, though, man. You must be on that treadmill. You must be doing those supersets, man, on that water and that diet, man. You look great, Coach. Like you haven't coasted a bit.
Yeah. You know, the one thing I think, you know, I was a head coach for 11 years. I know we'll dive into that. You know, one of the things you sort of learn along the way is just the ways that you have to nurture your spirit and nurture your soul. And a lot of those things start with what you do physically each day and make that a priority. And then I'm sure we'll dive into this as we go through it, just the stuff that you do on a day-to-day basis, stay sharp, which I think we don't necessarily learn along the way in coaching. And I think it's super important so you can give your best version to your family and to your team.
Absolutely. So let's dive right into this. So always our first question is, what made you want to get into coaching? And then where was that first coaching job?
Well, you know, my family, I always start with my family when I talk about this. My father is a high school track and field coach, was a football coach as well, two-time state champion track and field coach, and I think he's almost 50 years teaching now. My mother taught for over 35 years, special education in the middle school ages.
Wow. She's a superhero.
She's a superhero. So she's got great patience. And she's got great patience and drive. And my dad has great drive and great focus. Right. And so, you know, our background is really simple. My background is as an educator. Right. And listening to my parents talk about the school system and talk about their students when we were growing up, that's just kind of a joy of life. And you sort of learn that you can really appreciate life through helping others. And you can get that satisfaction through helping others. It just so happened that I became a basketball coach. You know, when I graduated college, I actually had 3 jobs to work in newspapers, sports writer. And so, you know, I really thought about going into the media side of it. And then I ended up just loving basketball so much, you know. And I guess when you ask the question, like, how'd you get into coaching? You know, it actually started through like a little bit of a tragedy for me. I went to Mount St. Mary's. I was a 2 or 3 year starter. I was playing a lot of minutes and having a couple of good years. And then we sort of had a new coaching staff come in, and we had a bunch of young guys that were super talented, and they kind of made this decision, hey, we're going to play the young guys and the older guys are going to kind of sit, which is a thing that sort of happens. And when that happened, you know, I basically had to make a decision. I mean, you could either be a disruption to a team or you could be the guy who tries to bring it all together. I was fortunate at Mount St. Mary's to be a 3-year captain. So leadership has always been super important to me. And I actually had a coaching staff member, a guy named Kirk Sawney, who passed away about 3 years ago, who was an assistant coach at the time. And when I wasn't playing, and I mean, I wasn't playing at all, so I was playing probably 25, 26 minutes a game for my first 3 years. As a senior, I played maybe in 8 games altogether. But I give a lot of credit to my coaching staff, though, because they didn't ostracize me. Coach Sawney, Coach Milan Brown was the head coach at the time, Breon Dunlap. Those guys really put their arms around me as a player and as a person. And they really taught me the ways that I could enhance our team, not playing, but in practice every day and watching film study and just doing all the things that you do as a coach, basically.
Right.
And they kind of put me in that role as a player, and Coach Brown even went as far as saying, like, the coaches go out and they huddle before they come and address the team. And he even went as far as saying, look, when I go out to huddle with the staff, you take control of the huddle. And he would let me sit on the stool, which I didn't know was a big deal until now. Sit on the stool and address the team and all those kind of things. But he just had that kind of trust in me.
Wow.
So when I think about my journey becoming a coach, it really started because I wasn't going to get to play anymore, and I really had to make a decision. And at the time, I had great men around me to help cultivate whatever was going to be next. And I mean, like Coach Sawney, I'd come in, I'd work out in the morning every day at like 7 a.m., work from 7 to 8 every day. And he'd be in the office and I'd come up and he'd say, hey, what are you doing? I said, oh, well, I just got done working out. I said, well, why don't you watch some film? So he would sit down and I'm 21 years old and,
in the right way.
Yeah. And he taught me how to watch film and I was 21 years old. And I spent a year watching film of our opponents and watching film of other teams and him asking me to break it down and him teaching me how to write it out. And
that age, coach, film, the 21-year-olds is watching their shots, how many times they got open, how many points, irregardless of the defensive concepts, the screen, their motion, execution, watching themselves shoot. For you to get that type of information at that age, that's really phenomenal.
Yeah, like it all started, I asked a question like, how do you guys know what they're going to do? I mean, it seems really simple. And he goes, well, let me show you. And this time we had the VHS tapes. So, he teaching me how to cut up the VHS tapes. Yeah, we had like 4 different VCRs and he teach me how to cut it up and how to do it. Oh, yeah, it was amazing. And, and so, basically that's how I got into coaching was I had a tremendous desire to play. I love playing. I love competing. I love what the game gives us. And, Coach Sawney and the staff at the time really took that passion I had and redirected it into coaching. And then, at the end of that year, I was very fortunate. I got a job at Emory and Henry College, Division III. Now they're in Virginia, in Southwest Virginia, for a guy named Bob Johnson. And Bob Johnson at the time had been there, I think 25 years at the time. I think he was total 28 or 29 years at Emory and Henry College. And he's had Division I coaches, Nathan Davis, Mike Young, Jimmy Allen, John Kaufman. Those guys, my brother, who's a main G League head coach, Jamion Christian, played for him as well. And so he's, and obviously I played for him. So we had, a pretty good fraternity of head coaches that came through there.
Absolutely.
And I was fortunate to be at the end of the line. And so I always say with Coach Bob Johnson, I got the very best because I got the experience that he had throughout his entire journey. Yes. He was an amazing mentor and a person who shared it with me.
Right. Man, so it just shows you from, in an early age, as far as basketball goes and coaching goes, you got thrown into the fire unknowingly.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to run a timeout while the coaches huddle is crazy. Like you see it now in the NBA, the guys drawing up plays sometimes, but at that age, you don't really know, you don't have that feel what's going on, but the confidence that they gave you is incredible.
Incredible.
I make a joke on it. I'm sorry.
We would get to the end of the scouting report and they would say, Jamion, you have anything left? You did the scouting report the day before, and I would say, hey, you have to make sure we snap our head back on this play, or this guy really they gave me, and I didn't realize that at the time, how impactful that was.
Well, we talk about coaches as it all, though. Jamie, you talk about just the impact of quality people in men. That was the foundation of what coaching started.
Yeah.
Now it's about these two columns, but it used to be mentorship, it facilitating, changing lives. And just the funny part about kind of quantifying and executing a timeout, that's complex. And you can relate to this. Probably my first year as a head coach, we had a TV game, and TV timeouts are longer than regular timeouts. So I was traditionally going through my spiel, trying to navigate what's the best information to give during a timeout. They're going to run, what's going forward. But this was my first TV game. So I get my spiel and throw my guys out there. We still got 30 more seconds. Commercials going on. And I'm just sitting there, and the ref is looking at me like, you idiot. Like, we still got 45 seconds to go. So just what to say and how long to say. I'm like, I don't have it. So the next TV game, I had some fluff in there, but didn't mean to cut you off. But I thought you hit some major points about how vital it is. So you jumped into that role whenever it came about. You've already had experience.
Yeah, and I learned some kind of key things. One of the things that Coach Brown did, as well as Coach Johnson, and then I worked for a guy named Pat Flannery. They sort of had this this checklist that they went through in each timeout. Okay. A timeout is really crucial because it can be a very emotional time, and I actually think that when you're making a ton of decisions off emotion, you're likely to make a lot of bad decisions. And Definitely. So you sort of work through this checklist of, we would basically have like how many times the ball got to the paint defensively and offensively, right? So, hey, great job in the timeout. We got the ball in the paint 7 out of 10 times. Our goal is 80. Great job. Let's see if we can get one more time in the paint offensively. Hey, they've gotten 7 offensive rebounds in the last 5 minutes. Hey, we know we got to do a great job there. We can't give up more than 6.5, right? So just like those kind of like, what is most important to you and addressing those in the time. Instead of just letting some emotion ride on how you want to communicate the timeout. Hey, we're just going to go through these things with unemotion, with data, with fact, and then we can address, hey, we need to change our pick and roll defense, whatever.
No question. Great point, John. I tell you what, you're just blessed, and that's because a lot of times we see the optics of the Indiana Hoosiers movie, and it's all emotion. Man, you need to get back and get, a ref, but more important, that's a quality time that we have an objective throughout the game, and it shouldn't change because of a run or not. Hey, and I love how you added some positive reinforcement. Hey, we're knocking out this goal, but right then it dissipates the over emotion for young players. So that's a great point. People see TV, think we just going crazy. No, we want to have +10 on the glass. What it makes me blitz, side screen, and rolls. But I don't know if you have. You're so calm and cool and collect. But my first couple of years, I used some of the other timeouts. I was blowing up, and then I had to learn that, which you talked about. Hey, coaches, stay on task.
Yeah, and I think that's, those are kind of the things that you learn along the way. And, and look, emotion is a powerful tool to be used, but you want to use that tool at the right time. Mm-hmm. And if I can turn that emotion on the right time in the right moment, it's going to give my team even more energy. And if I can stay calm and collective with real data, right? Like, sometimes people make tough shots. Right. Yeah. And so they made 3 tough shots in a row. Hey, look, we contested all 3 of those shots. They made tough shots. Let's stick to the process of it. That's a really calming influence in the course of a huddle versus they made 3 shots in a row and they're wide open because we can rotate the right way. Right. So the ability to communicate the information in a concise amount of time is one of the most vital things that we can learn how to do. And then the emotion that's needed. I'm always thinking to myself, what does my team need from me right now? And sometimes I may not be emotional, but they need emotion. So I need to get to the emotional level. And then sometimes they need no emotion and I'm emotional. So I need to learn how to take it down level. So I think over time, when you have that level of awareness, it just allows you the ability to kind of match where you need to match and hopefully for everybody to rise to the best of their ability.
When years ago, I was coaching with Team CP3 doing a travel ball. Yeah. And during practice, like I'm really calm, low key, don't yell, don't everything. If one of the parents says, "Coach, do you yell?" Like I don't ever see you raise your voice. So just wait till the games. And then after one tournament, that parent came up to me and said, "I take that back. Like you can raise your voice." But it's like you said, like the knowing when to use that emotion and to raise your voice, it's gonna carry so much more meaning. Yeah. And just going back to Coach Kee and how he says he's adjusted over the years and he's learned. I saw him coaching a game last year, and that hadn't changed.
It's funny. I was head coach at Siena College for 1 year.
Okay.
And we had a great year. I mean, we actually had the biggest turnaround in Division I history that year. I think we won plus 10 games. They won the year before. We finished second in the league. We were picked to finish last. It was an unbelievable year. We had a guy named Jalen Pickett who got drafted by the Nuggets last year, was a freshman that came in with us. And we just had an amazing year. A lot of the guys from that team ended up becoming at least G League level players, and a lot of them play overseas now.
Okay.
But it was kind of like you kind of just run the race at the right time, and we all peak together. We're all looking for one another. Birds of a feather flock together, right? So, if you're an inspiring figure, you're going to find people who need to be inspired. So we sort of just walked that walk together and put together a great year. But I remember, we had a guy named Sammy Friday who ended up being a pretty good player. I think he played overseas as well. And we're about 3 months into the season, and he's like, we had a run. The team went on like a 10-0 run, and they come to the timeout. I said, look, we're fine. I said, we're fine. I always hit the button on my hand as a reset button. Like, let's just reset here. We're fine. We go on a big run, win the game. And the next day, Sammy comes to my office. He goes, Coach, man, we're down 11. We're giving up 11-0 run. Like, we're not fine. Like, when are you going to yell and scream at us? And so it's just like a funny moment because, in that moment, he might have been freaking out because they went on 11-0 run.
Yes,
right. He's just trying to stay calm, us coming back. And, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it goes the other way when I'm staying calm and I need to remember. But, I just hear him coming in and going, we were fine,
no,
but then
we're not fine. We're not good. Everything's not awesome.
Yeah. So, and a great thing about your story is, you really started at the lowest level. Some coaches kind of get thrown into the mix right away at a higher level, but you got the D3 taste of the non-scholarship and,
film exchange, the double charters. Yeah. The bus rides. Yes. The buffet for pregame. Yeah.
So how was that? You were, I'll say maybe you may have been the first player assistant that there was.
Look up on TikTok.
But now you're actually an assistant coach, and how was that adjustment? Just getting thrown in to the coaching profession.
Good question. I always love the challenge of things, and I think there's no greater challenge than taking a group of people, young people or men now, and trying to help them become the best version of themselves. I don't think there's any greater challenge because every one of those young men or every one of those men needs something different from you. And it's this is challenge to figure out what they need from you most. Moving into that role, again, I was a young player, I was a player and then I was coaching. And it was like some of the guys on my team were older than me.
Yeah.
But I've always just tried to be who I am. At the time I was like a young guy who was energetic, who could get on the floor and do different things. I just didn't try to be like the Tommy Tough assistant coach because I wasn't me all the time. Yeah. Right. It was me when we need to be better defensively. And I certainly weren't their friends. Like they wouldn't say I was their friend.
Right.
But there's also points where you can connect with them because you can communicate with them differently. Mm-hmm. And the ability to communicate and speak the same language, I think is vital. I see a lot of young, like last year I actually mentored a few young coaches. I did like a little side business. I was like mentoring young coaches. Right. And I was always amazed that their perspective initially was to be so separate from the players. Yeah. And I would say your advantage is that you're closer to the players.
Yeah, the pipeline.
Right. So figure out a way to create the right kind of boundary that you need to be who you need to be and who you need them to be. But don't create like a moat where there's no way that you can connect because you only have that ability to connect at that age for a short amount of time.
It changes.
And you need that momentum. It changes quick. And you need that momentum. You need that momentum to kind of bridge the gap so you can be better than your opponents at certain times, certain moments. And so I think that's like super important. So I never tried to do that. I never tried to just be so far away from the players and have this level of separation. I always wanted to be the person that they felt like they could talk to, they could connect with. And then, probably most importantly, I wanted to be the person that they knew would be in the fight with them.
Right.
And I'm in the fight with you. So when you're struggling, I'm struggling with you. When you're playing great, I'm cheering you on louder than anybody else. When it's time to get in the gym, I'm in the gym with you, and just try to win their hearts by working and being what they need you to be and helping them become better.
And there's going to be that one year when you come back on campus and somebody calls you sir. At that moment, that happened to me. I was like, oh man, like I've changed a little bit. They see me differently walking around campus.
Can't go back.
Right after we're at Emory and Henry, where do we go after Emory and Henry?
So I spent 2 years at Bucknell University for Pat Flannery, where I was the operations, which is a great opportunity for me because with Coach Flannery, I was like his right-hand man. So every meeting he went to, whether it was fundraising or scheduling or meeting with the AD, associate AD, anyone, I was sort of the person that drove him, went with him, got to pay attention to it, what he was doing. I always say it was like really pivotal in my development because this is where I kind of learned the business of basketball and from the head coaching. A lot of times I see these guys go from assistant, and then they become head coaches and they've never been operations. They've never been video. So they don't necessarily understand the nuances of those things. And those positions are pivotal for how you operate on a day-to-day basis. I got to be there with him when we would go talk to important donors about giving more money or the state of the program if we were struggling. And I just got so much value out of that, just being there in the room. No one's asking me any questions. I just get to sit there and listen. And I just try to really do that. And so I learned like the business of basketball. And to this day, like how any program I've been with, we operate essentially the lessons I learned at Emory and the lessons I learned at Bucknell in terms of how we systemize, whether it's our fundraising, whether it's how we deal with our players, how we work with our players, how we work with our recruits. I mean, it's all a system that was sort of created from those first two spots, which have really helped every place we've been. So the 2 years at Bucknell with Coach Pat Flannery, then I went 3 years with William & Mary with Tony Shaver.
Wow, some quality coaches, some quality men. Yeah,
man, I'm fortunate. I mean, I've worked for guys. I always put this on my cover letter. Like I've worked for and played for guys that have won over 1,400 games now. Yeah. So my college coach won over 800 games.
Yes,
right. So so Tony Shaver, who basically rebuilt William & Mary basketball, one of the toughest jobs in the country, a place where he had them basically knock the NCAA door multiple times over a 10-year period. You learn there like what resiliency really is, because you're at a place that is known for much more than just sports or basketball or football. It's a place where the world's smartest people go to learn to be better, right? So your perspective changes with the clientele that you're working with. Then from there, VCU, Shaka Smart, round of 32, the year after the Final Four. Did win the most games in VCU history that year at 29. Worked with the guys like Will Wade, Mike Morrell, Will Wade, Mike Morrell, Mike Rhodes, Donnie.
You guys.
Yes, I was Mike Jones at UNCG. So we kind of have this whole family, and we really appreciate one another and like the work we've been able to do. And Dwight Perry, who's now the head coach at Wofford, was a graduate assistant on that staff.
Wow.
So we just got I mean, it was a lot of knowledge around there at the time. And then from there, I became a head coach at Mount St. Mary's for 6 years, and then 1 year at Siena and 3 years at George Washington.
I'll tell you what, that's magnificent. Let me get you at VCU. We connected, I think in Mercer at a coaching clinic that was run by Doug Eslick, so I had a chance to interact with you a little bit. I was blown away. I knew you were a star in the making. I really liked your humility, liked your preparation and your presentation. So that's when you and I connected. But just talk about, again, VCU, that staff of progressors, of success, of almost all-stars. Talk about that continuity, that culture, and just all those former soon-to-be head coaches. What was that atmosphere like?
Yeah, who was not a head coach on that team? Like a future head coach on that coaching staff.
The manager.
I think everybody you named became a head coach.
I think
a successful one.
Yes. Yeah, everyone will be. I mean, Donnie Lind is down at UNCG doing an amazing job. He's going to be a great head coach. He worked for me at Mount St. Mary's for 2 years and really helped us gain some momentum to be a dominant team in Northeast Conference. goes to UNCG. They're now a dominant team. So,
Yep.
he's kind of the next guy that I think will have that opportunity, who will absolutely kill it. And Dave Maturo was my GA there, actually. He's down in North Carolina coaching as well. So, he's going to be a guy that's going to have a chance. He's been interviewed for several head coaching jobs.
Yeah.
He'll be great. So it's going to end up being the entire office, I believe, is going to be right there.
So, and like Coach said, like, what was that experience like? You get there right after the Final Four run, so you guys are on a tremendous high.
Yeah,
and walking in there, what was that experience like?
Number one, like, just to be candid, you better bring that shit every day.
Yeah, no doubt.
They're coming off a Final Four. I'm coming from William & Mary. Coach puts me in charge of the offense, and right away. So right away, you've got to shine and try to climb yourself to the very top. And the great thing is, Will Wade, he's one of my best friends, just an incredible worker. And him and I work differently, but he's an incredible worker. Mike Roach, incredible worker. Mike Morrell, like all those guys that we name were just incredible workers. And I myself, I believe I'm a worker as well. So it's like in that environment, it wasn't like I felt like I got to change anything. I actually felt super comfortable there because I felt like we were all working for such a big purpose.
Yes.
I've been on a lot of staffs where guys are working to become head coaches or working for their next job. And they're honestly, none of us were. Like, everyone became head coaches, but none of us were working for that. Like, we were working to try to get back to a Final Four, to try to keep elevating VCU, keep honoring Shaka and the love and the way that he helps us develop every day. And like, we were working for such a bigger purpose than just the next head coaching job. And I would say, like, it's a place where you can really just get lost in your work because if you do your job at the highest level, everything's going to come to you. You're going to have a successful year. You're going to have good players. You got great administration that supports you. Yeah. It's just like, it's one of the most amazing. It's the place where I learned, how much I loved basketball because, and we talked about this a little bit before, we're going to work a lot of jobs in this life as basketball coaches that are not just basketball. You're going to be just doing a lot of different things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you get to VCU, it is just about basketball.
Okay.
And so it's a place where I was like, all right, like, I could work till 3 a.m. on basketball. I have all the resources that I need. I have all the film work that I need, all the breakdown I need, all the manpower that I need. I didn't have to spend a lot of time on like these processes to organize things because I could then organize my staff members. I could organize my TAs to do some of that stuff for me, and then they could give me most of the information, right? And it just allows you to go be the very best that you can be. And you don't find many situations like that where you have the resource and the manpower that allow the people to go and do that. And VCU is definitely one of those opportunities.
And we also love to hear your story and your background and your basketball acumen, but just for the non-coaches, just give me just a blueprint of just a day at VCU as an assistant. Kind of give me, what your day, when's it start and end, just an average day.
So, the beautiful thing about Coach Smart is everybody at the time, I don't know how it is now, but everyone there sort of worked differently, and it all came together for the common good. So like a guy like Mike Rhodes, I think he would take his kids to school every morning, right? So he might get in at 9:30, whatever it is, maybe, he would take his kids to school and he'd always do his work. So it wasn't an issue. Will Wade was an early morning guy. So Will Wade be in the office maybe 5:36.
Wow. I'm
a late night guy. So I'm going home at 2 or 3, and that's great for me, right? So it all sort of kind of came together. And so for me, I'd always get in probably about 9:30, 9:45. Shock would get in, somewhere around then. And then, the first thing we do is might have a staff meeting for practice or whatever we're going to do and talk through that a little bit. But the first thing that I would do and Will would do as well, I know he do this, we would go through our recruiting list. And so we'd have it organized in a certain way that we're hitting certain recruits every single day, and then we're hitting other recruits. And I would try to take the first hour of the day and making sure I was hitting our recruits in the right way. You could apply the same thing if you're in sales or business, right? And it's like you're going to get, you have the kids that you think are going to be really good. You have these kids that you think are above board, and you have kids that you think can move into that realm, right? So the ability to organize all 3 of those kind of groups so that you're constantly hitting them and that they're feeling the love and appreciation from you, I think are super important. I think many times people sort of shoot such a small area that, I think, you end up missing on a couple, and then you end up scrambling for someone that you have less information about.
Right.
I always saw it like recruiting was just all the information. So I just want to get as much information on as many kids as possible, get ourselves as close to the end as we can with as many kids as possible, and then we just get a chance to make a decision. So we kind of go there, we'd work through that. Then we would practice. I think at VCU, we practice at, can't remember, it might have been 12 to 2.
You were the offensive coordinator, sounds like.
Yeah, I was definitely off the course. So, so we would kind of go through that, and I'd go through the practice plan and just kind of organize like, hey, this is what, these are the drills we're going to do. And when we do the breakdowns and stuff like that, Rose would do the same thing with him. We'll do the same thing. We go to practice. We practice for basically 3 hours every single day.
Three?
And
You said three?
Three, pressing, trapping, everything, 3 hours. Me and Rhodes had to practice, so that was a battle. We had a guy named Briante Weber that was a freshman at the time, and Darius Theus. And so me and Rhodes have to practice every day. So you physically have to be in a certain place. When you have Briante picking you up full floor, and look, don't turn it over. Like if you turn it over, now think about it, he's second all-time leading steals leader in NCAA history. Right.
Wow.
So if you turn it over, Shaka's all over the coaches for turning the ball over, right? And so he's just all over. It's like it's hiding havoc every time. But it was great because they held everybody accountable at the same level, coaches, players, whatever. You go your 3 hours of practice. And then after practice, you had certain guys you might work out with, certain guys you're shooting with, doing the normal stuff there. And I do think the ability to I didn't ice bath. I was on this thing.
One-on-one is hard.
I was just like trying to be tougher than my circumstances. I don't know if that was smart,
It's a good T-shirt right there. Trying to be tougher than my circumstances.
Right. You have to go to a different mindset to be there, to be in at that time period.
Obviously.
So, you work your guys out after practice. Then you might get a quick dinner, because it'd be 4 or 5 o'clock, get a quick dinner, send a GA out for your dinner. And then for me, I would start my practice grading at probably about 6 or 7 o'clock, my practice grading, any extra recruit calls that I had. And then I did this grading system that I did for our offense. So each team that played, I'd go through and I'd grade every one of their ball screen sets and grade every one of their offenses, who they had involved, what players. I call it tagging. We do it now.
Yep.
But we would tag every play. So it would take a long time. And then we would grade each possession. So let's say we came off a single side ball screen.
Yep.
We would grade if the guy on the backside overhelped or underhelped, if the roller was late on this action or that action. But I mean, it would take a long time to grade it because you're literally going every single play. You're grading every play. But what it allowed us to do when we got into the games was we could really pick apart defenses.
Recognize it.
Knew like if we get this guy involved in the screener action, we're going to be open up top, or he's not going to bump the cross screener, so he's going to be open on the baseline.
No question.
Right.
So it would take a long time, and so I would do that from probably again it's years back, probably 6 to 11, and then usually we'd have a player come back around 11 that wanted to shoot. Troy Daniels was the guy that came in a ton.
Oh, he could shoot it.
Darius Theus. Yeah, you don't learn how to shoot like that unless you're putting in the work.
You have no idea.
And so it's great because guys like Troy Daniels would come back at like 11 o'clock at night. I'd still be in the office. We'd shoot for half an hour. Then a bunch of guys started coming over, and then I would finish my work up probably about 11:30 to about 2 with some of the tagging, and just wanted to make sure that when Shot came in the morning that he had that stuff on his desk, just so he could go and make the best decisions with what sets we wanted to run the offense, through the course of it. And it became a good system. We use it now coaching overseas. It's really helped us offensively just to be able to get the ball to where we need to.
I tell you, Coach, I need a 30 and a full just listening to your routine. That's fatiguing, but again, success is not accidental. And that work ethic is tremendous. Coach Bollwage, I tell you what, I'm fatigued.
It's crazy because, you look at all that success that they had, and what sticks out to me is, this is your first year at VCU, and Coach Smart puts you in charge of the offense of a team that just came off the Final Four.
Yeah.
So, what's going through your mind of, because you have, I'm sure your thought process of what an offense should look like may not have been what VCU did the year before. So how does that affect your thought process? And what do I change? What do we keep? I know there's a little bit of pressure, and just talk through the mindset that you had to have going into that position with that pressure of them coming off the Final Four the year before.
Yeah, I mean, pressure is a blessing. So, I always enjoy the pressure of that. And for someone like Coach Smart to give you that responsibility, it just means he believes you can do it and you do a good job with it. And certainly they had a lot of players coming back. So, are you looking at like changing everything? No, absolutely not. You're more so, and I guess I shouldn't say they lost 4 players that were key figures. We had a bunch of young guys stepping into those roles. But what we wanted to do is just try to put these guys in position to be successful. And I kind of went back to it. And I've done this every year, what we did at Emory and Henry College. So when I was at Emory and Henry, my second season there, midway through my first season and through my second season, we started running this, we called it Emory and Henry running attack. And it's where we basically took a shot every 11 seconds.
Okay. Wow.
Sub 5 guys in, we played 3 different presses. We played really fast. We averaged 105 points a game. We were third in the nation in turnovers force, third off the rebounding. But you're playing like such a fast pace. And, so it's like, the way we built this, and it's kind of interesting. So we would basically have, let's say we had 18 people on the team. We'd have 3 teams of 6.
Okay.
Right. So 3 teams of 6. And then each one of those teams would run sets that are based on that personnel of that team.
Okay.
Right. So we'd have like a base offense. We'd have like 5 sets or like the base for everybody would know. But then we'd also have 5 additional sets for each one of those teams that were different and unique to fit that ability. And so when you kind of work through that, like that process to decide what a player is going to do is really about like watching it, tagging it again, like where you're saying like, this guy's really good off screen to screener. This guy's really good off stagger. This guy's really bad off stagger. So let's just bring him up down screen. This guy's a better post-up guy. So let's post him up. And so instead of looking at it like really specializing it, but that's really offense, right? And so when we got to VCU, like we had a guy like Darius Theus, and I think he was shooting, like 30% maybe from 3, or maybe a little less than that. He'd only been a sophomore at the time, and we'd run double drag in practice. And he'd make 3s off double drag, right? And so people are always going under him, and so it was like, hey, look, Darius, we're gonna run double drag, and when they go under, shoot these. And when we run just a regular ball screen and roll, just try to turn the corner and get downhill. Right. Like it seems so simple, right? But it just cleared the thought process up for him. So when they would go under on the double drag, he have a ton of space, could set his feet, make the 3. If they go under, he's going to use his speed to try to turn the corner. We would clear out the front side in front of him. And so then he'd be able to get to the front of the rim. And so it's just like these kind of conversations that you're having with every one of the guys on the team. And so when you're building your playbook, and this is actually one of the things I actually mentored a few coaches on last year. Like when you're building your playbook, don't build it to what I want to run. Right. Build it to what's best for your team.
Right.
Yes,
and everyone on the team would have different things that they played really well off of. And so I wouldn't say that we changed a lot of things. I mean, there was always concepts like Coach and I are throwing around, and maybe we'd add in a different ending, or we would do different stuff like that. But
customized.
It was more about like, how can we get this player in the right position to score when we need him to score, or this player in the right position to make the right pass when we need him to make the right pass. And that does determine on the proximity of the other players. And then the next layer is, Hubie Brown will say this: great shooters make shots from 5 out of 7 spots. Maybe Steph Curry's an anomaly. He makes them 7 out of 7, right? But most players are between 3 and 4 out of 7 spots. So then my job is to try to get those players in those 3 to 4 spots where they're most dangerous, where they can let it go. And so, when you're building the offense, it's like, how can I get my best players in a position to impact the guys who are maybe not the best players, but are more specialists, and putting the specialists in the spots where they can be most dynamic. And so that's kind of how we, I wouldn't say we built it, because, they had a format that they really liked and that worked. I would say we tried to continue to add to it and just try to specialize a little bit differently so guys could have freedom to be able to go and play.
Okay. That makes sense. A way to come in and assimilate at the same time. That talks of humility, specializing, customizing, people's strengths. And you're right. Some coaches, they have a plan that they come up with, and they feel strongly, but it's a marriage with your players and getting the best from them. It may flip, but we had a great kind of background on your collegiate coaching career from beginning to end, and outstanding stops. Now, currently, Coach, give me a little background on what you're doing, where you're at, and how long you've been there.
Yeah, and before going to that, I do want to say, like, with the college experience, like, Coach Smart, his mentorship during that time period where I was like learning, even now, but learning offense and learning defense and learning how to run a team. And, I think he gets a ton of credit for the energy that he brings to a program. I don't think people will ever fully understand the energy he brings to the people that he works with and the people that he's with every day.
That's powerful.
During that time period, he gave me that confidence to stand in front of those guys who had just been in the Final Four and try new things. And he gave me the confidence to fail, and he gave me the confidence to come back and get it right. And I think if there's anything that can be missing in our business, it's a lack of mentorship from the head coaching position. Now, can't spend 100% of your time mentoring.
Right.
But as a teacher, you can really bring people along with you. And, I just know with Coach Smart, he's taken so much pride in doing those things. And so for me, even working there, then the head coach of other places, he's just in that fight with you all the time. And whether or not you're winning NCAA championships or you're having a tough season, he's just in it with you. And his passion for your development never drifts, no matter how good you're doing or how bad you're doing. It never drifts. And so, I can really say that relationship has been a relationship that really changed my life, because it gives you something to aspire to as a leader, to not just be focused on your own stuff, but be focused on what you can do for others. And so every time I see them have success, it's not a surprise to me, because I think I know what he puts in other people. And, it's really, one day they'll do a documentary on it, and you're going to have 200 people that are going to speak on this documentary about, him reaching out to, I remember being in my office at George Washington, and, we had I was there 3 seasons. We had 2 years blanketed with COVID. It was a tough time. They're rioting in the city all the time. There's literally tanks on campus. It's just like a crazy time to be the head coach at GW. And he would call me every single day. And this is a year that, this is the year he was at Texas, his last year at Texas, and he would call me not every day. He would call me every week and check in on me. And then I would call him at the end of the week and check in on him. And, he just got that passion for other people that's different. And so when he wins, everybody that's been with him legitimately celebrates the victories and the winning for him. So I do always want to say that, because I don't think that gets enough credit, for the impact that he's making on others and him taking the time to do that.
Well, I think that is right of the objective of our podcast, the life on the road, and talk about being touched by others. And that's the character word that we don't hear. We hear the W and the L word, but outside of leading young men, parallel with their blessings. That's what we're coaching. We talk all the time, is defined in a plethora of ways, and it should be change agent. It should be impactor. And truth be told, in any high school, collegiate, we're in the forefront. We set the trends, what have you. And again, let's be honest, let's be real. Like young people say, keep it 100. That is dissipating in our profession. The C is going lower and the championship is going higher. And we thought championships meant championships in the classroom and in life and in the course. So that I appreciate getting firsthand knowledge of what it meant to you. And you and I, you're a humble guy as well, but you have that same vibe. I call you, hit me back. You've always what needed, even in between your coaching stops. You talk about mentorship and helping people out. So I see where it derived from, and thank you for sharing the other side of our business that gets no play, no ESPN, no Fox, just the impact of coaches battling up and down as well. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. I think leadership is, the first level is influence. And I think we all have the ability to have influence over someone. It could be as simple as saying hey, I like your shirt. The next time that person goes to their closet, they're going to remember that someone said they like that shirt. That's influence.
I might not seem like my shirt. Like my
shirt.
Like
your shirt.
Podcast. I got you. I mean, cut you off, but you inspired me.
And I think sometimes as people, we don't understand our influence. And so I always say the first level is influence, and just having the responsibility of your influence. And influence can be negative, because you can say, I don't like your shirt, and if the person might not even wear that shirt again. Right. And so to say not everyone can be a leader. Everyone has a role in leadership. You might not be a leader, but you have a role. So the first level is obviously influence. The second level is inspire. Inspire is often a person that you see from a distance. Can't be someone you see from a distance, but you might not know, that just inspired you to want to go and do more. Right. And you think about, you might have For me, it was my cousin. He was like, just a little bit older than me. And he just always was like outside playing and always shooting. And we were always doing stuff together. He had a great, he really inspired me to say, man, I want to do more. I want to be more. It could be someone like Muhammad Ali, someone you see on TV every day. Like you don't know enough about them for them to have like that next level, but you're just inspired. They're inspiring you to look at it. Michael Jordan, for many of us, right, while we're in basketball, he inspired us to want to go out and shoot fadeaways and try to be a tough competitor, what that looks like. And the third level is impact. And impact is like huge because impact means I want to go out and change the world from what I've learned and who I am. Right. And so in order to get the impact, you have to have all three of those levels as you kind of work through it, and I think the acknowledgement and the awareness of all three of those things that are transpiring to you to become an impactful person, impactful leader are super. Right. So I think as coaches, we all, I think understand influence.
I think we lost you for a second.
Froze for a second, but yeah, we did. We got. But we got your gist, and we got the leadership points you were making, and as again, just a civilian watching this, knowing you from your coaching perspective, but just to hear how dynamic you are as a person leader, it is as impressive, Coach.
Yeah, and now I guess we can talk about Pallacanestro Trieste in Italy.
Yes. Talk to me, Coach. Where you at right now? I know you're about an hour away from me, maybe a little further as we communicated, give or take 7 hours of time frame. Talk to me where you're at now, what you're doing.
I'm the head coach of Pallacanestro Trieste. We play in the Italian league here. A great basketball city. Trieste sits on the Adriatic Sea, right next to Croatia. So we're on the eastern side of Italy, but it's been great. I mean, it's been a great experience. Learning the pro game. Being a head coach at this level is challenging because so many good teams, so many good players, and I had the challenge of not growing up here, not knowing Italian basketball, and so there's been a large learning curve for me just to learn how to interact with our players and how to practice the right way. I mean, we've already had 140 practices this season. Our season started in August and it's going to end on June 15th. Right. Okay. So, that breadth of a season requires different tempos at different times. So I'm learning a ton of that stuff, but we've got a great team. We've got a team that has the ability to promote. Promotion is everything here. In European basketball, you get promoted for winning, you get relegated for losing, and then you stay in the middle as well. But the whole goal is to be promoted. It makes the competition to be at the highest level. And I have a team that will have the ability to get promoted. So we're going to go for that and go for the big goal. And I believe we're going to have a chance to get there by the end of the year.
And so, are you the basketball version of Ted Lasso?
I think I'm the black basketball version of Ted Lasso for sure. I think culturally it's so different because how we interact with our players in the States versus how they interact with their players in Europe.
Right.
It's different, very different. And so it's been a little bit of adjustment for our players just because, I recognize I'm the head coach. So I want to be the head coach but I think I can have a relationship with them as well. And I think I can help them become better by doing that. And I'm not sure they were always used to that relationship, but I think now, 6 months in, I think we're all used to that and understanding where we're coming from as men. And I think we're going to start seeing some great results because of it.
Well, give me the structure of the league you're in. I know a lot of times overseas there's a limit of American players and native born. So give me kind of a synopsis of that structure.
Each team's allowed 2 imported players.
Okay.
And then there's 8 Italian players essentially, or players who've gone through Italian formation, right? So there could be a guy who's from Croatia, but played 4 years when he was on the youth team in Italy. He counts as an Italian player. So there's all these different ways that guys slide into becoming an Italian or whatever. But essentially you're going to have 8 Italian players and then you can have 2 imports. Now you can have more than 10 on a roster, but you can only play the 2 imports at a time. So the imports become pretty important. But the Italian players are obviously super important as well because there's more of those guys than the imports. So it's a really competitive league. And I knew it was going to be when we came over and took the opportunity I mean, super competitive, really good teams. A lot of guys who, we've got some guys who played in the NBA in our league. We've got some guys that played in the G League.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a really good collection. We've got some EuroLeague players in our league. Like, it's a really good collection of good players that we coach against and play against every single week.
So how did you get involved with this? Because this isn't your traditional, we moved from one college university to another one in a different state. We're going, 6-hour time difference, a couple countries over, different language, everything. So how did you get involved with this?
I had my podcast, Last Call with Jamion Christian. And we were bringing on guests from all, really all facets of sport, and, I'd always been a media guy. I love media. Again, like I told you guys, I miss doing my podcast now.
Right.
I just enjoyed it so much, just having a chance to connect with people on a weekly basis, ask really interesting people, interesting questions. And one of our missions we were kind of doing was we wanted to bring in coaches, GMs, and basketball people from all around the world.
Okay.
And so we brought in Michael Archieri, who was the GM at the time at Varese. And Michael he'd been with the Orlando Magic, he'd been with the Knicks, he'd been with the Nets. So he's an NBA guy, he's an American guy. He played at Wesleyan College, Division III. He's from New Jersey.
Okay.
And he was the GM for this team in Italy. And we brought him onto the show. And, and it was crazy. Like, again, none of this stuff was like intentional. Like, we just wanted to give our guests an interesting
diversity.
Diverse, interesting guests to listen to give some different perspectives to. And we came across Michael, and honestly, him and I just hit it off on the call at an incredible level. I remember getting off the call with Michael and going downstairs to my wife and saying, why can't I work for someone like this?
Yeah.
He's had an incredible connected vision on what it should look like. And we just had a great vibe for how it would be. And, and then, at the end of that year, Varese, he's GM of the year here in Italy. He's just done an amazing job with the roster. And then the Pallacanestro Trieste GM job opens up, and he interviews and gets the job. And so, through the year, I was really following them because, I'm the type of person like I'm in it with you. So like once I had him on the show, I was following their team and they were playing well, and I was really happy for him. Yeah. And when he got the job, I remember texting him and said, man, congratulations, GM of the year. And then the next day it was said, Michael Archieri stepping down from wherever. So I was like, oh, geez. Hey, man, just checking in on you. I know you got good plans, good things ahead of you. And he goes, I'm going to call you in a week. And so like a week later, he called and just said, hey, would you be interested in this and something like this? And it was just really interesting. And, some podcasts where we really connected and talked some hoop, and to him offer me a job a few months later, and, a chance to do something really special with someone who really believes in you. I would say this to anyone, like, I'd been out of college basketball for a year, right? After being in it for, 18, 19, 20 years, whatever it was. And, when you're down and out, you're going to need someone to come and pull you out of the mud, and you don't know who that person is going to be. But when they pull you out of the mud, you're going to have a great appreciation level for them, because there are people that stepped over top of you, a lot of people that kind of looked at you and let you drown.
And a lot of times, the people you think want to pull you out the mud, they walk by you and push you deeper. So that is doesn't happen often, but those moments, to my building character, builds awareness too, because the people that 100% are with you. And then when it happens, and we talk about all aspects of college basketball. I remember when I got my first head job, my phone wouldn't stop. My wife's phone, my friend's phone, everybody's trying to, and it's impossible to answer all those calls. Okay. Right. On the converse, when I got let go, my phone, I didn't think it worked anymore. I had to check it. I had to sprint at the time. I didn't know if they cut it off, and just the complete difference of, people calling you, you don't know if they're genuine, just checking on you. I haven't heard from you in 3 years, and there's so many angles, and you almost get guarded. And then on the opposite end, when it happens, the transition, I'm talking about no one. And then there's that in-between crew that'll call you, fronting empathy, but wanting information. Yeah. Man, sorry to hear that. Who's on the list? Who's going to replace you? Right. I'm like, Nelly, are you for real though? So,
no, you're right. And I think that's why you have great respect for those who pull you out of the mud. And, And again, I've been through that situation before, like at
Right.
Bucknell, when Coach Flannery retired at the end of that year, you kind of felt that we didn't have a ton of people sort of like reaching out to us. And then out there at GW, when I was let go, I was amazed at a few things. Number one, I was also amazed at people's kindness.
Right.
I had probably 20 to 25 coworkers, not my staff, that called me from GW legitimately in tears.
Wow.
Like really, really legitimately heartbroken that what had happened to us. And that felt really good to know that you had impacted people that you didn't, that I'm coaching basketball, they're coaching this other sport, just that you had that level of impact with people.
Right.
And then you have the people who just kind of call and ask for information.
Like, at least fake it. I mean, do a better job being discreet.
But I think that's a challenge for us. Like for me, I did this before I got fired. I always call it a forced sabbatical. So before my forced sabbatical,
I like that. We'll coin that.
When someone was let go, I would call them basically for 12 straight weeks.
No question. I'm in the same boat.
Once a week,
Check
and
on them.
not for information. Like the first text message is, "Hey, don't need anything. I just want you to know I'm thinking about you." And just trying to show, because I think that's really important. It's a lonely opportunity. It's a lonely job. And just wanted to make sure that people know, like, man, I've been through this. I'm here for you. And I've gained a lot of friends through that process of just trying to lean on people and trying to help people. I don't even want any information. I just want to make sure you and your family are good and that your mental's in the right place where you can be ready for the next thing.
So I want to just go back a minute. I can't look over this. And again, when we spoke before, my dad being a Mount St. Mary's alum, and I've had an opportunity to go back with him and, go to the campus and everything. And now you get the head job there.
Yep.
Okay. I got to ask, like, what was that like going back to your alma mater? And now when you're sitting in that stool during the timeouts, you have a suit on.
Yeah.
And
yes.
what was it like for you just to get the job, and now you walk back in and like, man, this is mine. Like, this is my opportunity to help my alum, the school where, I put basically my heart and soul into everything there. Now I'm back. Like, let's just talk about that for a second.
That's interesting because, I'd played for the legendary coach Jim Phelan. That was my head coach. I wasn't initially going to take the job. 2 years before I'd interviewed for it.
Okay.
Didn't get it. And was told by good people I interviewed really well. They just didn't want to give it to at the time I was 26 or 27 years old.
Okay.
Really nervous about turning it over to a 27-year-old at the time. And so initially I was like, I'm not going to do this. Like I basically called me. I said, I'm not interviewing for this. You can offer me the job, but I'm not interviewing. Right. Because I just felt like my experience as a player there was really disrespected the first time. And so, then, I have the AD was Coach Phelan's daughter. Right. So I was on a bunch of committees with her and stuff when I was in school and did a bunch of stuff. So, it wasn't as simple as some people think. It was just like, oh, I left and went right there. Like there was a 10-day period there where there was a level of friction because I didn't want to go back unless everybody was fully committed to what needed to be done. And I wanted to make sure that the disrespect I felt wasn't real, right? And that it was just more the time and space. So I wanted to allow that time to make sure with the president that was there, the vice president, everybody there that we were all on the same page coming in on this, that we needed each other to make this thing work. And so we talk about going back there. Like I actually never thought about it. I would say this to our players all the time. I would say someday there's going to be someone else sitting in this chair that's going to have the same responsibilities that we have. I never thought about it like until you said that. I never thought about it like it was mine. I thought about it like it was my responsibility to carry on the legacy of all the head coaches that have been in Mount St. Mary's before.
Right.
And it's funny. I never thought about it like that. Like any trophy that we won, I never thought about it like that. I always thought about it like, I'm a part of a much bigger opportunity here, and wanting to just move it forward. I mean, there's this whole thing in Western culture where it's about ownership of things.
Right.
Yeah. So you're 100% right about that.
About ownership. And
Yes.
I just think I'm much better when I don't look at things like I own this,
Right.
Yeah.
but I'm a part of it and I have a
Right.
responsibility.
Right. And I think that's what I was trying to get at is
Yeah.
it's like your opportunity to carry that legacy on
Yeah.
because of everybody that had come before you.
Yeah. Man, it's going to require a little bit of reflection. There's a moment where it's a year number 5, and we started this year 1-11. We went and played. I think we raised 800,000 in buy games. We've played a 21-game road trip. We made a
21-game road trip. Yeah,
21 day road trip. 21 days.
Fundraising, yes.
Beginning of the year, and we start 1-11. Number 5 strength of schedule in the nation going in the middle of December. And I think many people at that time would have thought that this wasn't going to work. Even though we'd already gone to the NCAA tournament 3 years before.
Right.
And I just remember just knowing the men in that locker room and how we're going to respond. I think we finished the year 20-13 or something, 20-14.
Phenomenal.
We ended up being the regular season champion, which had only happened 3 or 4 times in Mount St. Mary's history.
Right.
We go in as the number 1 seed in the tournament. We win the tournament at home. Those things had never happened in the same year at Mount St. Mary. Regular season champion and tournament champion. Right. They'd already done one or the other. But there's like this incredible moment where, you're in the game and you're sort of locked in on what's happening on the floor.
Right.
And I remember Miles Wilson, we were down 6 or 7 or something at the half, and Miles Wilson hits a 3 with about 14 minutes left in the second half that puts us up by 2. And the place erupted. And I remember looking up when it erupted, and there were people standing all the way around at the very top, standing, and there were people standing all the way around. And I just remember thinking, Coach Phelan retired my junior year. I'd never seen as many people in that building as that moment that we were just in. And I remember looking up and seeing all the people. And then I remember looking to the baseline where Coach Phelan would always sit. And I remember the look on his face and how incredibly happy he was, how incredibly proud he was. And so we go on, we win the game, we win the game, and it's just incredible moments like that you really remember. It wasn't really about, maybe it was about me. To some people, I'm sure they thought it was about me, but when I remember it, I remember him. And I remember him, we often say you need people that are going to say your name in rooms where they aren't mentioning your name.
Yes, you do.
This man has mentioned my name several times in rooms where they had not known my name. And to be with a man, across from a man who could celebrate your success as though they are his own, because they are his own, because we were sharing this moment. Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. There's also these moments where the confetti's falling after the game and you have your children with you on the floor and your children are catching the confetti, and then you look out on the floor and your players are catching the confetti, and you really realize that all these moments are connected.
Right.
The joy that our players are having, the joy that our children are having, the joy that we're all having together, it's all as one. And we spend so much time trying to separate it.
Yep.
Right.
And there is no separation. It's all intertwined to one another. And so maybe that's a long-winded answer to how it felt. But to this day, I still get the hair on my arm still stands up, because I just remember, I'll tell you another story, which is crazy, since you talked about Mount St. Mary's. And these are things that come up. We had a kid named Chris Ray. I hope Chris doesn't mind me sharing this story. A kid named Chris Ray. And you think about transferring. We played a game his sophomore year, and at the end of the year, we didn't play him. We needed a defensive stop. We didn't play him. And he's a great defensive player. As a senior, he became defensive player of the year. He got drafted in the G League draft. Great defensive player, great player.
Wow.
The sophomore wasn't quite there yet. And so after sophomore year, he comes in the office, and we basically went through this period where he's like, I want to transfer, if you don't have confidence to play me in these games. And it was a beautiful thing because I never told him to stay. But we talked through it. And at the end of it, it was a 3 or 4 day period. I think most coaches might have got mad after one day.
Oh, yeah, an hour.
But we went 3 or 4 days. And the last day I said, I think what this team is missing is you being the leader that it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And your refusal to lead is what's holding our team back.
Mm.
And I don't know if he ever saw himself as a leader, but he was 1,000% one of these guys who's a leader that people follow, people believe in. He has the ability to inspire you with his words and his action. And I said, but I tell you this, you make a decision what you want to do. If you choose to lead the way that I know you can lead, I will meet you at half court after we win a championship, and I will hug you. And that next year, he led the way that he could lead. And there's like this beautiful picture we have where I found him at half court, and he's in complete tears. Wow. And his best friend's right behind us because his best friend knows the nature of the conversation. He knows the weight of the moment that we had almost a year before.
Prophetic.
And so when you ask me about Mount St. Mary, it's like those are the kind of things that I sort of like lean on, like those things where maybe people see this picture of me hugging this guy and they have no idea the weight that was behind
the background, the gravity of it.
Man, that's, again, it's the great thing about this podcast is taking coaches back to those times.
Yes.
Yeah.
And us sharing, and now everybody gets a chance and to hear those stories and to share the moments with you, because you talk about the shot, they hit the three, and then you're looking up, and then you look over at coach, and it's like that's out of a movie.
Yeah.
Like the slow motion part of the scene in the movie where like it all comes, I want to say full circle, but you're now in that position and you look over slow motion, the cinematic view of everything. And it's like that's what movies are made out of.
Humanistic part.
Right. And so it's great just to hear, and I can visualize it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody listening, if they really think about it, they can. And if you've coached at all, you can visualize that moment. So we're just excited you could even just share that with us. And Coach, you want to take us to the next segment of our show with our ultimate coaching staff.
Ultimate coaching staff, and you have
this will be good
to pull from. This is going. I can't wait, and this is live. So just try to have some structured, relatable topics. Again, you've had outstanding jobs, but just for the sake of the question, you get the job where everything's intact, your resource, your location, your ultimate job. Okay. And on that job, you have to hire your ultimate staff. It's called no disrespect, no shade, because it is difficult. Everyone can't make it. So on that staff that will accumulate, you would like to have an offensive coordinator, like what you had with Shaka, a defensive coordinator, a recruiting coordinator, and an associate head coach that could be whatever role you need to fill. Could be an X and O guy, could be a support guy, special assistant. So those are the qualifications. We would like you to stay in those boundaries, but again, we know your background. It's not going to be easy. We've had a plethora of answers, maybe 1 or 2 in the possible, like in spades, but best of your ability, try to stay in those parameters to build that ultimate coaching staff.
You could just take that staff from VCU and be good.
I'm basically taking those guys. You know what I mean? Just taking those guys. I mean, I've been fortunate to work with so many good coaches. I mean, I mean, Will Wade would definitely be my recruiting coordinator.
Okay.
I mean, we're always going to have players with Will. And Will has an incredible balance of, balances me off in an incredible way. Nathan Davis, who's a head coach at New Hampshire right now, would probably be my associate head coach just because he also balances me out. We kind of have different personality types, but he's always been just a great resource for me, a person I can connect with. My specials coordinator would have to be Mike Morrell. He did that for us at VCU.
Okay.
He has an incredible ability with pressing and trapping and underneath out of bounds. And, he's got the personality for all that stuff. His success has always been outstanding because he's got the great personality for it. And Mike's a guy I've known. He was at King College when I was coaching at Emory and Henry, which is 15 minutes apart. So we've been friends since we were 22 years old. So we share in our successes. Trying to think. I've had a lot of good offensive coordinators, so that's what's really challenging. Graham Bowsley, who's a head high school coach in California, Donnie Lind, who's down at UNCG, Ben Wilkins is great on the offensive side and the defensive side. So that's when it gets kind of challenging for me because I've had some people that are just outstanding,
Right.
and that have done the job at an incredible level. I think Wilkins is probably Ben Wilkins, who's probably the best defensive coach I've had. He was just outstanding. I mean, he's a great coach, man. He's a great coach. I worked with him at William & Mary.
Yep.
One of the things I was really fortunate with was when I got the job at Mount St. Mary's, he called to see if I would bring him on staff. I didn't call him; he called me, and I was like, "Sure, man, we'll do it." Another guy I had that you guys may know or may not know is Daryl Bruce.
Yeah. Yes.
Squirrel.
Oh, Squirrel. Good. Yes.
Already on staff at Mount St. Mary's when I got there, and cool. he was with Mike Bray when he was young. He was with Darryl Whitberg, I think, when he was young.
Wow.
I probably don't give him enough credit for just talking me off the ledge as many times he did when I was a first.
That's a critical job. It's a
critical
what I mean? Responsibility.
I don't know what position I'm putting him in, but I'm always putting him right beside me.
Right. I've lost now. You're about. I stopped at 9, but I knew Will Wade's recruiting the offense.
I need a lot of people. I'm high maintenance now. Yes. I'm coming from Furley. I'm high maintenance now. So I just think I think to be good, I need all those people with me. But those guys are all outstanding, and I've been fortunate to work with a lot of them. And I just had a lot of really good ones. Ryan Simpson that worked for me at GW was an outstanding guy recruiting players, and the list of guys at San Diego now with Steve Lavin, obviously the players he's bringing in. I've also had younger guys like Julian Boltner, who's at William & Mary, who's an outstanding defensive coach. So I've had some guys that have just been outstanding. So it's hard not to pick the guys you've been in the battle with, and I've had been in the battle with a lot of guys.
No question, and we can edit and we can count them again, and with your fundraising acumen you learn back out the gate, you could have a staff of 10 or 12. But that's definitely the ultimate staff, if you call one. I appreciate that, Coach. Coach Bollwage, hit it with the next one.
Man, so this is our final one. This is my favorite. So we call it Coach is Anonymous. Not Coach is Anonymous, like you need rehab, but a story about a coach. If we are past the statute of limitations and you want to say his name, feel free. If you want to keep it anonymous, everybody has the first name of coach in his profession. So a funny story from practice, from the recruiting trail, from traveling, somewhere along the line about an anonymous coach. So Coach Jamion Christian, give us your Coach is Anonymous story.
And let me clarify, my experience is it's better when you were an assistant story than a head story. It's usually better when you did something wrong or forgot something. But again, you're a head pro coach and you've already expanded the first question. So any way you want to shape it.
I've got some good ones, but this one was told to me directly from the person, but and so I'm this guy tells me a story. He's a really good head coach. He's been a head coach for a long time, but he's telling a story. He's at this airport, and it's been like a long day, and they're waiting for their taxi to come pick him up. And you know how it is when you're recruiting in July. It's just like you're going from city at the time, not now. Maybe it's different now. Yeah. At the time, we had the 30 days in a row, and so he says at the end of the 30 days. And he gets off. And he's in I think he's in New York or New Jersey someplace. They get off. They're waiting for their taxi. Taxi to come. There's a homeless guy in a trench coat that's just screaming at him. The guy probably screaming at him from the other side.
Right.
Guy starts screaming at him, and he's walking over and he's screaming at him, yelling at him, and obviously his coach is like, man, I'm gonna have to defend myself. And so by the time the homeless guy gets over, he's thinking like, I'm gonna have to fight this guy. This guy is like bringing real
No
pain.
question. Yeah.
And so he says, like, the guy opens up his jacket, and he says to me, as he was opening his jacket up, I was thinking, if he doesn't have a gun in there, I'm gonna beat this guy's ass.
Yeah.
So the guy opens his jacket up, doesn't have a gun in there, and then he just pummels this guy on the street, and then gets in his taxi and just leaves, So, I was like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is an incredible story, just because maybe we all would have thought the same thing, but he just pummels this homeless guy and just throws his bag in the back of the taxi and leaves this guy
at the end of the 30-day period.
And during the recruiting period, it's like, and then the next morning goes out and has some cornflakes and he goes out and recruits kids like it's nothing, so I have some probably better stories, but I'm gonna leave with that one because no one's gonna connect that story to me or to whoever that's with.
That is awesome. Oh, we must have your back for more stories. You're gonna lead this segment. That is phenomenal. We all been there. Your coaching's changed so much. You're fatigued. You're tired. You're waiting for, getting back, making sure the tournaments are right. You make the kids are trying to commit early, and then a homeless man comes.
Yeah, I mean, and I really felt like that was like some of the best times when we had the 30 days because I really felt like you could outwork people because people would really get fatigued midway through, and you just follow the same kids over and over again. Where if you like a guy who was just super hungry for it, I remember watching guys like Marcus Thornton, who got drafted by the Celtics and played for us at William & Mary. Like I remember going and watching him play in some offshore tournament with different team and just doing different stuff like that. And now it's like so structured that only the teams with the most amount of money,
no question,
have the advantage.
Right. And you remember guys off site though. Remember, there's a big tournament in Florida, and then there's maybe a gym, a closed open gym, and you would go there. I used to get kind of like a high when I would maybe be in Disney Orlando, and I'm trying to watch 3 games at one time. I'm sitting there between the curtain. I'm watching this game and watching that kid. But, we sit side by side if we're on the same kid. But I would try to just maximize and be efficient. I should love it. I'd have my schedule. One day somebody give me a call. Hey, say we're in Hollywood, Florida. We're in Florida, or excuse me, Milk House, and get a call about an hour away. It's a JUCO terms, a kid here unsigned. So it was just a high. But nowadays, man, guys are Zoom calling signing kids. So I can't relate. I
love that time period because I really felt like you could really outwork people. We're limited scouting services. So you had to get out with your own eyes and you had to see.
No question.
That's not a knock on the scouting service or anything like that. It's just that you then had to get out there and go and see, and you had to really get out and kind of beat the bushes a little bit. And now I feel like it's gotten so it's so saturated now that it's hard to find. It's really hard to find a diamond in the rough.
It is.
And that's what really makes us. The way I always say this: the way you move up in the business is by signing a player that you shouldn't have gotten.
No question.
Right.
Like you don't like if you're getting all the players you should get, like you're probably not moving up in this business.
And without an NIL, you know what I'm saying? Without an allotment or social, no question.
Like I was going out here with a dream, a hope and a dream to get guys. Like
yes,
that's all I was offering, hope and a dream.
And how about this though? How about this, Jamion? Just a game and shit, but we had some genuine relationships. But you with assistant coach at the same level. And you be genuine 80% of the conversation about who you're looking at. And then the other 20%, you wouldn't give them the whole list. You seen him? Oh, yeah, he's okay. The kids you be talking, but 20%, you're like, are they recruiting him as well? Then your top guys, you wouldn't open your mouth on those guys because somebody might a step high take them. I just love talking. Hey, you seen? Yeah, I'm going there tomorrow. I'm going to Peace Jam. What about? And you leave one event out. Open gym, 2 running, shooting in Atlanta, and you leave about 10. Even your good friends. I just miss watching guys who they looking at, who's recruiting you. It was a fun time.
People would get mad at me because I was giving you no info. You weren't gonna know who I was looking at. Like I might go to the game if I heard you were recruiting a guy. And we're at Mount St. Mary's. You're at Sacred Heart. I might go to the game just to try to mess your recruiting up.
That's good.
We got a game off. I'm just gonna go over here to see if I can get involved with this dude. I don't want him, but I just want to mess this guy's thing up. You know what I'm saying? I just want to have
I'll
people
tell
get
you.
mad at me because I'm giving you no information.
Yes.
And, you know, kind of the system that we put in place, we had like a pretty good idea of
Right.
what level guys were going to go to and what they're interested in, what was important
Yeah.
to them.
Right.
So, you know, I was a menace out there. I enjoyed being a menace. You know what I mean?
Hey.
Like we try to be out there, you know, so.
I give like Fox News, man. I give you false news. Yeah, I don't like that guy right there. We tried to sign him last night. But Jim, you had that book pack, man. You had that backpack, man. I don't know. It was about 15 inches wide and it was 30. I mean, I don't know what you had, but you had that backpack wherever you went. You had you had cell phones in there. I think you had a computer in there. I tell you what, I mean, that backpack, I don't know what you had your whole summer program, didn't you?
No, you remember this though. You remember, so think about this. We first started recruiting, dudes are coming out with briefcases.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dudes had legit briefcases going out recruiting. And I just remember, like, I had the white hat. Like, I got a white hat still to this day. Right? Like, I remember going out recruiting and just thinking, like, these guys got briefcases. And the kids don't recognize any of this stuff with the briefcases. I was young. I was 26-year-old assistant at William Mary. I was the youngest assistant in the CAA at the time. That's a slew of head coaches now and was like one of the best leagues in the country. I think it was the 6th or 7th best league in the country at the time. And I was like, how am I going to separate myself from them? So I started rocking the backpack because, you know, like I was like, I'm not carrying a briefcase. It doesn't.
I remember.
I'd have the briefcase, I'd have my thing, and I'd have a white hat on. And I mean, why are you rocking a white hat? And, you know, like no one wore hats. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, hey, like I would say to a kid, like, look for me in the white hat. So you could find me in the slew of coaches and you know I was always going to be there. You know what I'm saying? So it was just trying to be, again, being a younger guy, trying to figure out a way to separate yourself from so many different competitors.
No question.
You know, the backpack, then everyone tried to do the shoes and all that stuff.
Yeah, I tried the fluorescent early on, the shoes. Yeah, but no question.
You know, but, you know, I was doing that stuff. When I was 26 years old doing that in the CAA, people were making fun of me for the white hat and for the book bag and the shoes.
Makes sense. Genius.
Now you go out and everybody's doing those things. So
that backpack was filled up too, Coach. I know we rolling, man, but let me add one more thing because you bring me back, Coach. I know I'm going on, but this is about. Do you remember being maybe a Peach Jam or a Milk House at an event, right? And you're there before your head coach, and the next game is coming, and he's coming out of flying for somewhere else. He needs a seat. Do you remember how difficult it was to get a seat for your head coach? Well, because he wants to sit down, period. And you're sitting there, you're trying to get squared away and the pressure of the game coming and his seat being ready, and then having the game book and making sure it's at the exact spot, the exact roster. He always asks you the question of the kid you're not sure about, but you remember that pressure, the preparation for your head coach coming into a facility.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly part of the process. You know, I was only an assistant coach for 4 years. I was an operations guy for 2. So I was only in 2 years as operating, and then four, and that. So only for 4 years really being an assistant coach.
We're getting your chair. Okay, you can't relate. We're getting your chair.
Yeah, you're getting my chair, but no, you know, I think it's always that pressure because, like, you know, with Shaver, I would just get up. You know what I mean? I would just get up and behind him and just try to create that. Shock wanted to sit beside you. So, you know, and a little bit easier when you got Shock. Because, you know, I can just say, hey, Shock is going to sit here, you know, like. Yeah, that dude's exactly. Like, you know, I mean, any young assistants, all right, Shock's going to sit here. You know, they're like figuring it out for you. So, but yeah, I was fortunate because Shock is like not like, you know, super high maintenance like that. You know what I mean? So, like I remember some guys literally carrying. I remember this is the wildest thing I've ever seen for real. You know, it was an older coach. Older white head coach, and this black dude was carrying around his chair to put his chair down for him. I thought that was crazy. That was a little bit me. Wow. You know, we out of this. Like, I'll get you a chair. Like, I'll make sure you have a chair.
Yeah. Right.
I'm carrying your chair with me. That's a lot. That's
impressive. Hey.
Was that a customized chair or one of those?
Yeah, he was carrying a customized chair to the events for him. I said, man, that's a lot. That's a lot right there. That's getting into.
It's a lot.
I grew up in the South, so that's getting a little bit.
That's a lot. That's a lot, but overall, the pressure. That's a lot. Black History Month is a lot, but we understand just the internal pressures and even the organizational structure. I know you got to go, but even just before everything was written out for you from a technical standpoint, just getting your games organized for the next day, because there was a certain time where there wasn't limits when the game ended. Now they have like a limit a certain time. I'm in like 12 o'clock, 12:30. I'm in Florida trying to figure out who's playing gold division, silver division, playing tomorrow, what time, and what have you. So those are the joys, Coach, man. This
People
has
will
been
never understand because those games were in at 12:30.
Yep.
And then sometimes if you're marking a kid and the games get pushed back, you're like, all right, well, I have to be in another place tomorrow at 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to miss your flight. So you got to take your rental car. You got to travel that to where it's going to go. Like it was a pretty hectic time in recruiting.
It
Pretty
was
expensive and hectic time. But, that's what we love to do. So
isn't it crazy?
Yeah, you look back
I'll do it again.
to the Vegas days of hour between gyms.
Yes.
Possibly missing a game because you have to drive an hour and you're trying to cut it close just to get in the gym just so you can catch the last quarter of the game or last half to go back another hour and a half the other way.
A team pull out, schedule wrong, stats misspelling, one number and the phone number wrong. Coach, good old days.
Vegas, if you don't know how to navigate Vegas, you're gonna miss all your games.
All of them.
So learning how to navigate that, and then like once you learn like where all the schools are and kind of like how to navigate it, it's like a beautiful thing. Like we'd always go to staff dinner. Ben Wilkins and I would do this. We go to staff dinner that night with our staff, and we would just sit down and we would just put all the books out on the table and just map out like, all right, you have to go in between tournaments because, you might be in a tournament, Adidas, and you're going to be going all over the place where you might be in Adidas and Nike, and you're going to be going 5 or 10 minutes between each other.
Hieroglyphics. Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. From North Las Vegas to Henderson.
Traffic.
Back over. Yeah. It's they should bring that back just so people could experience it.
Hazel.
And think about this, like we were doing this, early mid 2000s when like Google Maps and like no GPS wasn't really a thing.
No.
And you got to navigate through Vegas on maybe MapQuest.
or Atlanta with always construction.
But think about this. So if you had MapQuest, you had a MapQuest from one gym to another, then that gym to another gym. So you had to have your everything laid out well in advance, and God forbid something changes. But just the dynamics of again navigating yourself through Las Vegas during that period of time.
I tell you the worst. Like when I was at Emory and Henry, and we were going to like, you might go to some single A school in Carolina. Or some school in Virginia that's like in the mountains. If you miss that turn and all you have is MapQuest, like, like in Vegas, it's like, all right, well, maybe I can work my way,
no question.
Out.
No.
When I was hunting, when I was at Emory and Henry, I was hunting. Like there was a month where I went out for a month straight, just traveling between places, school. And you look around, if I miss one of these turns, like I might be in Kentucky tomorrow.
No question.
Right. And you think you're going in the right direction.
Right.
Right neighborhood, make decisions. I tell you, there's so many, a myriad of skills we have as coaches, from socially to decision makers, organizational. You're sitting there getting lost, how not to look like a straight visitor, where to go, reading people. Oh, it's just unbelievable, man. It's the best, one of the best professions in the world. But Coach, I can't thank you enough, man. We're going to have a segment 2 with you. You were outstanding, 5 stars, and thanks so kindly for the time in season. We're going to follow you with great interest and look forward to keeping you up to date what's going on over here in the States.
Coach, we talk about doing the next session in the coach's office, going live from the coach's office. So if that means we have to come out to Italy, to go live from your coach's office. Once we get the funds and the sponsorship and everything, I would love to just come out to Italy and do a live broadcast from your office out there.
Absolutely.
You should do it. We had a crew out here. We're actually like pitching. We may end up with a show that's going to be on either Netflix, Amazon, or Apple or something. So we had a crew out here shooting half of the season already.
Okay.
So we'll know in the next few weeks whether or not we could have one of these in-season specials coming out next year sometime. So it'd be good for you to come out here. It'd be a good club for you to.
No
definitely.
question. No question.
So, Coach, we appreciate you taking the time on this day. I know you're busy with everything going on, so we greatly appreciate it, and definitely look forward to seeing you on the road.
Yeah, thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
All right, take care.
Like, it's funny. I didn't talk about this on there. You could probably put this on there if you want, but
Okay, get it, Coach.
There's been times in my life where I coached in fear of something. Like I think when I was at GW, I was coaching in fear of getting fired.
Right.
There's been times in my life where I was coaching to get something, right? I wanted to get a bigger paycheck. I wanted to get a bigger platform. There's been times in my life where I was just coaching just to prove something.
Right.
And just to prove that I belong, to prove that I earned the opportunity. And I'm glad that I'm past that phase now. And now I'm just coaching just to be where my feet are and enjoying what I'm doing every day and the impact people that I'm with. So I think that I've gotten through those other 3 phases now. Like, it's not that I'm not ambitious, because I think we all have great ambition, but I think the motivation, the motivation, the gasoline in the tank isn't. The gasoline in the tank is purely pointed off of just doing the very best job that I can and kind of seeing where that lies. I feel like there's been times in my career where, I didn't want to get fired, or I wanted to get a next opportunity, or, whatever. And I just don't feel that right now. So when people ask me, hey, what do you think is going to be next? It's like, I just want to win on Sunday.
Another outstanding episode of Life on the Road. This time we went across the sea over to Italy to speak with Coach Jamion Christian. And what an outstanding journey he had from, being a player assistant with Mount St. Mary's and working his way up to coming back to Mount St. Mary's and being a head coach there and moving on all the way out to Italy. So, Coach Kee, any final words on our episode today?
Passport podcast. Again, just you hit it on the head. Just a dynamic start. Youth really learned a lot about coaching through adversity as a player. Had great men around him, inspired him, and had a tremendous career at a young age to lead. It was great. Enjoy how he tied everything into life lessons.
All right, Coach Kee, take us on out.
I'm Alphonza Kee.
And I'm Scott Bollwage.
And keep it in the road.
And keep it between the lines. We want to thank you for your continued support of the Life on the Road podcast. Please comment on each episode and give us that 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast. And make sure you hit the follow button so you don't miss an episode. You can also watch all the episodes on our YouTube page and follow us on social media at Coach AKSB. Thanks again to all of our guests and listeners. This wouldn't be possible without you.